Have you ever wondered why certain figures from ancient myths seem to, well, possess an eternal life? They keep morphing across centuries, across cultures, always finding new ways to capture our imagination.
It's a great question.
What truly makes a legend timeless? How does it echo through millennia, from whispered tales all the way to blockbuster movies?
It really is profound, isn't it? These stories aren't just dusty relics. They are living narratives. They adapt, they resonate in ways we often don't even expect, reflecting the shifting values, the concerns of different eras.
Yeah.
It's really a testament to the power of archetypes, I think.
Absolutely. And when we talk about such enduring, multifaceted legends, there's one figure who immediately leaps to mind. Hercules.
Oh, definitely.
You might picture him as, the brawny strongman from cartoons or epic films, but he is, in reality, far more complex than just raw muscle.
Much more.
His story is this sprawling epic. It spans ancient Greek origins, crucial Roman adaptations, deep dives into medieval allegories, vibrant Renaissance revivals, and surprisingly pervasive appearances, even in our hypermodern world.
Yeah.
He's a character who truly refuses to stay confined to the pages of history.
Indeed. And what's truly fascinating is observing how his identity shifts and evolves, sometimes subtly, sometimes, quite dramatically.
Right.
Reflecting the values and concerns of the specific cultures that embraced him. He's sort of a chameleon among heroes.
That's a great way to put it. For this deep dive, we've pulled from some incredibly rich material. We've got a comprehensive overview from a reputable online encyclopedia.
Okay.
Which gives us the broad strokes of his remarkable journey through time. And we also have a detailed narrative from a video script that focuses on, arguably, his most iconic and challenging labor.
Ah, the Geryon labor, I bet.
You got it. So our mission today is to embark on a true deep dive into the very essence of Hercules.
Let's do it.
We'll unpack his unique Roman identity, peeling back the layers to understand how he became Hercules, not just Heracles.
That distinction is key.
We'll explore the unexpected facets of his worship, particularly his role in, believe it or not, Roman domestic life.
Yeah, that always surprises people.
Then we'll examine how his narrative was continuously reinterpreted through vastly different historical periods, from Christian allegory to political propaganda.
A real roller coaster through history.
And finally, we'll take a truly immersive journey into what many consider his most epic and symbolic challenge. That harrowing quest to the very ends of the earth to retrieve the Cattle of Geryon.
The big one. It's such a fantastic story.
The goal for you, our listener, is to walk away not just knowing more facts about Hercules, but truly understanding why his legend continues to resonate with us.
Right.
Whether we're looking at ancient coins, contemporary art, or even modern military operations.
It's everywhere when you start looking.
Get ready to explore the many faces of a true icon and discover why his strength lies not just in his brawn, but in his incredible adaptability. Okay, so let's start by clarifying something crucial. We often hear Hercules and Heracles used almost interchangeably, right?
All the time.
But the transformation from the Greek Heracles to the Roman Hercules, it was far more than just a name change. It was a profound cultural adaptation. It reshaped the hero's very identity, his core narratives.
It's like a rebranding almost, but with centuries of cultural weight behind it.
Exactly, a rebranding.
And that's a crucial distinction. What's fascinating is how that transition actually began, long before Rome became the dominant power we think of.
Oh, really? How so?
The Latin name Hercules was borrowed and adapted through the Etruscans. They were this ancient civilization in Italy predating the Romans.
Ah, the Etruscans, right.
And he appeared in their art and language in various forms. You see names like Heracles, Hercule, and Hercules.
So multiple versions even then.
Exactly. In fact, Hercules was a particularly favorite subject for Etruscan artists. You often find him on their bronze mirrors.
Huh. Bronze mirrors.
Interesting.
Yeah, it demonstrates a really early cross-cultural adoption, showing how ideas and heroes migrated even back then. It sort of laid the groundwork for his later Roman prominence. And it wasn't just in art or, formal worship. He truly permeated everyday Roman language, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine walking down the street in ancient Rome and hearing people exclaim, Hercule, or Miracle.
Like swearing by him.
Pretty much. It was like saying, good heavens, or by Jove today. Yeah. That kind of widespread integration tells you he was part of the common vernacular, deeply embedded in the Roman consciousness.
Wow.
Far beyond just the grand myths and religious festivals, he was part of daily life, a common turn of phrase.
So just woven into the fabric of speech.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this widespread linguistic and cultural adoption, well, it explains why, in later Western art, literature, and pop culture, Hercules became the more commonly used and recognized name.
Ah, that makes sense.
It cemented the Roman version's global influence over the original Greek Heracles. Essentially, the Roman Hercules became the standard bearer for the hero's legend across much of the world for centuries.
His Roman identity became the dominant narrative. So, okay, this wasn't just a linguistic tweak. Hercules also developed distinctly Roman myths and civic associations that really anchored him to the burgeoning city of Rome itself.
Right, he became their hero, too.
One of the most prominent, distinctly Roman myths is his triumphant defeat of Caucasus.
Yes, Caucasus.
Yeah.
The fire-breathing monster.
Exactly. A monstrous fire-breathing giant who was terrorizing the Roman countryside, specifically around the future site of Rome.
So, right where the city would grow.
Right. Hercules' victory wasn't just another heroic feat. It directly tied him to the protection of Rome's nascent territory and its people. It transformed him from maybe a distant Greek demigod into a local, accessible hero, a protector of their homeland.
That makes him much more immediate, doesn't it? Not just some abstract figure.
Definitely. But how deeply rooted was he in the actual geography of the city? Was it just about the general countryside?
No, he became interwoven with Rome's physical landscape, too. We know of his specific association with the Aventine Hill in Rome.
Okay, the Aventine Hill.
Through his son, Aventinus, who was said to have been buried there.
Ah, okay, so a direct family link to a specific place.
Exactly. This detail further roots Hercules in Roman geography and their very foundation myths, integrating him into the fabric of the city. He wasn't simply a hero who visited Rome. He was foundational to its origin story.
Reinforcing his protective, almost patriarchal role within the city's early legends.
Right. And this influence stretched even further, reaching into the very pinnacles of Roman power.
You mean like emperors and generals?
Absolutely. Imagine powerful figures like Mark Antony or even the famously unpredictable Emperor Commodus. Actively aligning themselves with this demigod, considering Hercules their personal patron god.
Wow. So it wasn't just a casual nod.
Not at all. It illustrates his deep connection to Roman political and military might. For them, Hercules symbolized immense strength, martial prowess, and often, well, unchecked ambition.
Qualities they'd want to project.
Definitely. Commodus even went so far as to be depicted as Hercules on coins and in sculptures, openly claiming this divine patronage.
Blurring the lines between emperor and god hero.
Completely. But here's where it gets really fascinating, I think. It reveals these unexpected, almost intimate roles for Hercules in Roman society and religion.
Okay. Like what?
Far removed from battlefields and imperial courts. Beyond all that political ambition, Hercules was also venerated as a deity concerned with children and childbirth.
Wait, really? Childbirth? That seems surprising for Hercules.
It does, right. But it connects back to the myths surrounding his precocious infancy, like the famous tale of him strangling serpents in his cradle as a baby.
Ah, okay, I remember that one.
And the fact that he was said to have fathered countless children. This surprising facet challenges our modern perception of him purely as a brute.
It really does.
It reveals how ancient societies sought strength not just for conquest, but for the most vulnerable and intimate aspects of life. Even the most formidable figures held complex, nurturing roles sometimes.
That adds a whole new dimension. It's a powerful insight into ancient heroism.
Definitely. And tied to family life, there is the fascinating knot of Hercules.
The knot of Hercules? What's that?
Okay, picture a Roman bride on her wedding day. Her special belt worn around her tunic was fastened with this very specific knot.
Special wedding knot.
Exactly. And it wasn't just decorative, it was highly symbolic. This knot of Hercules was famously hard to untie.
Ah, I see where this is going.
A physical representation of the unbreakable bond the couple hoped to form. It offers this captivating glimpse into Roman matrimonial rituals.
Showing Hercules' symbolic presence right there in intimate domestic life, representing unbreakable bonds and a wish for a strong marriage.
It's a wonderful example of how deeply mythology was woven into the fabric of daily life, even in something as personal as a wedding.
That's incredible. Which then leads us to a significant academic debate, right? About women's participation in Hercules' cults.
Yes, that's a tricky one. While Roman society generally placed limitations on women's direct involvement in certain public cultic practices, there is evidence suggesting there were female worshippers. However, the situation isn't entirely clear-cut. ancient authors offer conflicting accounts.
Like what?
Well, Macrobius, a 4th century writer, paraphrasing an earlier scholar Varro, recounts a story. Hercules is bringing the Cattle of Geryon through Italy.
Okay.
And he's denied water by a woman because it was a goddess swimming day, a ritual where it was unlawful for a man to taste what had been prepared for women.
Oh, interesting. So what happened?
Well, Hercules, being Hercules, was supposedly displeased and prohibited women from his sacrifice in response.
So he banned women from his rituals because he couldn't get a drink.
That's the story, according to Macrobius quoting Varro. But the ambiguity surrounds the exact extent of this restriction.
Right. Was it just at the Aura Maxima, his most important, oldest altar in Rome? Or was this a broader prohibition across all sacrum, any sacred space or ritual dedicated to him?
Exactly. We don't quite know. Other Roman authors like Aulus Gellius and Propertius also provide similar accounts, mentioning that Roman women didn't swear on Hercules, nor did they sacrifice to him. So it paints this picture of a nuanced relationship. While women were certainly aware of Hercules and his broader influence, their direct participation in specific, maybe the more central rituals might have been limited.
It's a great example of how our understanding comes from piecing together fragmented evidence and interpreting debates among the ancient authors themselves.
Absolutely. History is often filled with these kinds of gray areas, not always black and white answers.
Definitely. Okay, beyond religious practices, his remarkable versatility extended into Roman literature and artistic expression too, right? Showcasing his multifaceted appeal.
Oh, completely. He wasn't just a religious figure or a symbolic protector. He was a dynamic literary character. His portrayals ranged from broad farce to profound tragedy.
Like Plautus's Amphitryon.
Exactly. Plautus's comedy uniquely presents Hercules' conception as, well, basically a sex comedy.
The sex comedy. About Hercules' divine conception.
Yep. It demonstrates that humor and irreverence were definitely part of his literary portrayal. It shows a surprisingly lighter, even bawdy side to the myth, far from the stoic hero we often imagine.
That's quite a contrast.
And then, in stark contrast, you have Seneca's Hercules Furens.
The tragedy.
A profound tragedy focusing on his devastating bout with madness. This reveals a much darker, more complex psychological and emotional dimension to the hero.
Exploring themes of rage, mental anguish, guilt.
Precisely. It truly highlights how Roman writers could pick and choose facets of his character, delving into his inner turmoil as much as his external strength. This adaptability meant he could be molded to fit almost any narrative purpose.
It's incredible how adaptable he was, moving seamlessly between comedy and deep tragedy. And this widespread appeal wasn't limited to Rome itself, was it?
Not at all. During the Roman imperial era, Hercules was worshipped locally from Hispania all the way through Gaul and across much of the empire.
Wow, Hispania through Gaul. That's huge reach.
It highlights his broad cultural impact across the vast Roman Empire. He was truly an imperial figure, a pan-Roman deity whose influence stretched from the Atlantic coast to the eastern provinces.
Symbolizing Roman power and virtue wherever the legions marched.
You got it.
Okay, so Hercules didn't stop at the formal Roman borders. His influence extended even further, reaching surprising dramatic connections.
Right. Consider Tacitus, the Roman historian. In Chapter 3 of his Germania, he records a special affinity of the Germanic peoples for Hercules.
Really? The Germanic tribes liked Hercules.
Apparently so. Tacitus noted how they would sing of him, first of all, heroes, when going into battle. They used their bardatus, this deep, resonant battle cry, to rouse their courage and even augur the result of the approaching conflict.
Wow. Using his name or songs about him to predict battles.
That's what Tacitus reports. It's truly fascinating, a Roman observer noting the Germanic tribes invoking a figure akin to Hercules as a war god. It suggests a shared understanding of heroic power across cultural divides.
That's incredible. A Roman hero inspiring warriors in a completely different culture? Does that mean they thought he was Hercules?
Well, scholars theorize that Tacitus, through what's called Interpretatio Romana, actually equated the Germanic god Hunras.
Hunras. Is that related to Thor?
Exactly. Who we now know better as Thor. Interpretatio Romana was this common practice where Romans would identify foreign deities with their own to make sense of other cultures' pantheons.
Ah, okay. So Tacitus heard about Thorfinras and thought, that sounds like our Hercules.
Pretty much. It offers a really fascinating example of how classical figures were mapped onto indigenous deities, creating this cross-cultural understanding and a syncretic blending of beliefs.
Is there physical evidence for this?
Yes, and what's even more compelling is the physical evidence. Hercules' club amulets.
Glove amulets, like miniature versions of his weapon.
Exactly. These small, distinctive amulets, shaped like wooden clubs, began appearing from the 2nd to 3rd century CE.
Where were they found?
They were distributed across the Roman Empire, including places as far-flung as Roman Britain, mostly made of gold. These weren't just decorative trinkets.
Got you.
A specimen found in Kalnippus, for instance, even bears the explicit inscription Deo Herculi to the god Hercules.
Wow, okay, so direct proof.
Unequivocally confirming their association with Hercules and his worship. They were powerful protective charms, worn to invoke his strength and protection.
So they weren't just decorative. They were actively linked to his worship, carried as a tangible piece of his power.
Precisely. And the evolution of these amulets during the tumultuous migration period from the 5th to 7th centuries is even more striking.
How did they change?
Scholars theorize they rapidly spread from the Elbe-Germanic area across Europe. These Germanic versions, often called Donar's clubs, Donar being another name for Thor, akin to the English thunder,
Okay, donors clubs.
were made from a wider array of materials than their Roman counterparts. Humble things like deer, antler, bone, or wood, and more rarely from bronze or precious metals, suggests a broader, more accessible adoption, perhaps.
Interesting. So it became more widespread and maybe less elite.
Possibly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this amulet type was eventually replaced by the Viking Age Thor's hammer pendants, the famous Mjolnir in the course of the Christianization of Scandinavia from the 8th to 9th century.
Ah, so there's a direct line from Hercules' club to Donar's club to Thor's hammer.
It shows a direct symbolic lineage, a cultural handoff, if you will, demonstrating how powerful symbols evolve and adapt over centuries, often incorporating elements from previous beliefs as societies undergo profound religious and cultural shifts.
That's a fascinating example of cultural continuity in the face of change.
It really is.
Okay, so beyond geographical spread and syncretism, Hercules was continuously reinterpreted through the ages, transforming from a simple hero to a profound allegory and a moral exemplar, right?
Yes, especially after the Roman Empire became Christianized. Mythological narratives, including Hercules's, were no longer seen as literal accounts of pagan gods.
So they had to find a new way to understand them.
Exactly. They were often reinterpreted as allegory, heavily influenced by the philosophy of late antiquity and the rise of Christian thought. They found new moral meaning in the old stories.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Servius, a prominent 4th century commentator on Virgil, interpreted Hercules' return from the underworld not as a literal descent, but as representing his ability to overcome earthly desires and vices. He even suggested it could symbolize overcoming the earth itself as a consumer of bodies.
Wow, so turning a physical quest into a spiritual or philosophical triumph over mortality or sin.
Precisely. This intellectual process allowed classical figures like Hercules to remain relevant, even useful in a Christianized world.
And it gets really interesting when you see how early Christian writers actively tried to bridge the gap between classical heroes and emerging Christian narratives.
Yes, so.
Well, some early patristic texts show this fascinating identification of Hercules with the biblical figure Samson.
Samson, another famously strong hero. Okay, I can see the parallel.
Right. It showcases deliberate attempts to integrate revered classical figures into the emerging Christian theological framework, finding parallels to make the old stories resonant and familiar within a new religious context.
A clever way to recontextualize powerful figures for a new belief system.
Definitely. And in medieval mythography, Hercules continued to play a prominent role, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. A testament to his enduring power as a symbol. He was consistently seen as a strong role model who demonstrated both valor and wisdom.
But how do they handle the monsters and labors?
The medieval scholars, true to the allegorical spirit, explained how the monsters he battled were regarded as moral obstacles.
Ah, so the Hydra isn't just a monster, it's greed or something.
Something like that, yeah. Effectively turning his physical feats into spiritual battles against vices or sins. Transforming physical prowess into spiritual fortitude, he became a blueprint for the virtuous knight or the struggling Christian soul.
And this moralizing impulse continued even in his celestial fate, right? When he became a constellation.
Yes. His journey to the heavens also carried profound meaning. A medieval glossiter, commenting on Hercules' transformation into a constellation, noted that it showed that strength was necessary to gain entrance to heaven.
Emphasizing a spiritual and aspirational interpretation of his power. his physical brawn became a symbol for the inner fortitude required for salvation.
Exactly. But it's important to note a significant linguistic divide during this period.
What do you mean?
Medieval mythography was written almost entirely in Latin. Original Greek texts were little used as sources in Western Europe after the fall of the Western Roman Empire.
Ah, so they were working mainly from the Roman versions and interpretations.
Right. Which inevitably meant that the understanding and portrayal of Hercules during this period largely favored the Roman-influenced narratives and interpretations, rather than drawing directly from his original Greek nuances.
Yeah.
Much of the richness of his Greek background remained undiscovered in the West for centuries.
Okay, that makes sense. Then fast forward to the Renaissance, we see this vibrant, almost explosive revival of Hercules.
Yes, fueled by a renewed interest in classicism and even outright political symbolism.
And the printing press must have helped.
Hugely. The Renaissance, coupled with the revolutionary invention of the printing press, brought a renewed interest in and publication of Greek literature.
So they got access to the original Greek sources again.
Exactly. This meant Renaissance mythography could draw more extensively on the Greek tradition of Heracles, though typically still under the familiar Romanized name Hercules or the alternate name Alcestis.
Alcestis, right, his birth name.
This rediscovery of Greek sources allowed for a deeper, more nuanced understanding of his origins and adventures.
And you see this reflected in Renaissance scholarship.
Definitely. Natali Conti's influential mythology from 1567 is a prime example. Conti collected and summarized an extensive range of myths under the Roman name Hercules.
But did he just repeat the stories?
No, crucially, he continued and perhaps even deepened the medieval moralizing impulse. He began his chapter on Hercules by stating that it was Hercules' wisdom and great soul that earned those honors. Noble blood, physical strength, and political power just aren't good enough.
Wow. So prioritizing virtue and inner strength over just muscle or status.
Exactly. It offered a more profound view of heroism, a very humanist take on the ancient hero fitting for the Renaissance.
And here's where it gets into outright political appropriation. The Hercule Gaulois, the Gallic Hercules.
Yeah, Henry IV.
Right. In 1600, the citizens of Avignon bestowed this title upon Henry of Navarre, who was about to become King Henry IV of France.
Talk about flattery.
It wasn't just flattery. Our source calls it extravagant flattery, justified with a fabricated genealogy that traced the origin of the House of Navarre to a nephew of Hercules' son, Hispelus.
They made up a family tree connecting him to Hercules.
Yep. Think about that. A false lineage created purely to bolster royal legitimacy.
Incredible.
It clearly demonstrates how Hercules became this powerful symbol of national identity and royal authority, invoked to legitimize and bolster the image of a king, connecting him to a heroic, ancient, powerful ancestry.
It's a fascinating blend of myth and, well, realpolitik.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears now and take that journey into one of Hercules' most iconic, most mind-bending challenges. His 10th labor. The quest for the Cattle of Geryon.
This one is truly epic.
And it wasn't just another monster to slay. It was a strategically chosen task, wasn't it? King Eurystheus, Hercules' scheming taskmaster,
Always trying to get rid of him.
deliberately saved this quest for his 10th labor. He knew its sheer distance and the monstrous guardians would make it an almost impossible quest.
Hoping Hercules would finally perish at the very edges of the known world.
It was designed to be his undoing, the ultimate test.
And what's truly fascinating here is the sheer mythical scale of the destination itself, the mythical island of Erytheia.
Erytheia. Where exactly was that supposed to be?
Situated in the far west, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar.
Okay, so beyond the Mediterranean, out in the Atlantic.
Way out there. A place where the sun was said to set into the ocean, literally the edge of the ancient Greek world, a liminal space.
So this wasn't just a physical journey across land and sea.
No, it underscores the epic boundary-pushing, almost cosmic nature of the endeavor, literally venturing into the unknown to a place bordering the realm of myth and oblivion.
And who was Geryon, the target of this quest? He wasn't just any giant, right?
No, far from it. He's described as a monstrous giant. His parentage alone signals his primeval nature. Son of Chrysaor, who was born from Medusa's blood.
From Medusa's blood, wow.
And the oceanid nymph Calero. His very existence pushed the boundaries of mortal comprehension, an ancient entity rooted in the earliest myths.
And Erytheia was his mysterious, untouched domain.
A place untouched by man, guarded by a being almost beyond human understanding.
And Geryon himself.
Mm-hmm.
His physical description is just bizarre.
Terrifyingly unique, an embodiment of monstrous power. He was often depicted with 3 separate bodies, 6 legs, and 6 arms, all joined at the waist.
3 bodies, 6 legs, 6 arms, all joined at the waist. Just try to picture that.
I know. This multi-bodied form made him a formidable warrior, capable of wielding multiple weapons simultaneously. An absolute nightmare to confront.
He wasn't just strong. He was a living, breathing, multi-limbed war machine. His very presence would strike terror.
Absolutely.
And was he guarding again?
The prize itself was as extraordinary as the guardian.
Right.
A magnificent herd of red cattle.
Red cattle? Why red?
The myths emphasize their uniqueness, perhaps even touched by the gods, certainly highly valued. Grazing peacefully in his western pastures. The sheer logistics of acquiring, let alone transporting such a herd across vast distances made the task seem utterly insurmountable.
Just getting him back would be a nightmare.
Exactly. And to protect this extraordinary prize, Geryon employed a formidable triple layer of defense.
Okay, what was the defense?
Ensuring any intruder would face overwhelming odds. First, there was Eurytion, the giant herdsman, watchful, imposing.
Already number 1.
Then, even more terrifying, was Orthrus, the 2-headed dog.
Orthrus. Sounds familiar.
His lineage connects him to other famous monsters. He's the brother to Cerberus, the Hound of Hades, and the Lernaean Hydra.
Brother to Cerberus and the Hydra. Okay,
Yeah.
That definitely elevates the threat level.
Significantly. It makes it clear Hercules wasn't just facing random beasts, but creatures born of ancient, powerful, truly malevolent lineages. It was a gauntlet of mythological terror.
So the stage is set for this perilous journey west. A grand odyssey filled with trials of fire and sea, even before reaching Erytheia.
Right. Hercules' initial challenges began as he traveled through Libya, specifically his torment by the scorching sun.
Just the heat itself was an obstacle.
Right.
Imagine the unrelenting heat, the desolate landscape. It wasn't just monsters he had to face. Nature itself was an adversary, seemingly conspiring against him.
And this is where Hercules' audacity truly shines, right? He doesn't just endure the heat.
No, he lashes out. Faced with the oppressive heat, he furiously shot an arrow at Helios, the sun god, himself.
He shot an arrow at the sun.
Yep. This isn't just bravado, it's an almost unbelievable display of defiant will. A mortal challenging a powerful deity. It speaks volumes about his refusal to be cowed by anything.
Even the most potent forces of the cosmos.
Exactly.
And what's fascinating here is the divine aid he received as a result.
Right. Helios, rather than punishing Hercules for his insolence, was remarkably impressed by his audacity.
Impressed, not angry.
Apparently impressed. Instead of striking him down, the sun god lent Hercules his golden goblet.
His goblet, like a drinking cup.
Well, not just any cup. It's described as a gigantic cup. Helios used to sail the ocean from west to east during the night.
So it's a boat cup.
Essentially, yes. Hercules would use this divine vessel to cross the vast western sea. This highlights Hercules' unique ability to command respect even from gods through sheer force of will, a touch of insolence, and undeniable determination.
It's almost as if the gods themselves recognize and respect that spark of rebellious greatness.
Or maybe they were just intimidated. But it also underlines the mystical, almost dreamlike method of his travel to Erytheia.
Sailing in the sun god's golden cup.
Exactly. Hercules journeyed across the uncharted waters, symbolizing a voyage into truly mystical and divine realms, beyond the boundaries of mortal navigation or earthly maps.
It's less a journey and more a passage through the divine.
Yeah, emphasizing the extraordinary nature of his task and his status as a hero who could interact directly with the forces of the cosmos.
Okay, so he arrives on Erytheia in this giant golden cup boat. What happens next? Is it immediate confrontation?
Swift and brutal. The moment Hercules set foot on the island, the immediate challenge presented itself. Orthrus, the terrifying 2-headed dog, lunged at him. No time for hesitation.
And Hercules?
With a decisive blow, he killed the monstrous hound with his mighty club. His signature weapon, blunt force trauma.
Club works again. 1 down.
And immediately after, Eurytion, the giant herdsman, attacked, alerted by the commotion. He, too, met a similar fate at Hercules' hands.
So boom, boom, guardians down.
This sequence underscores Hercules' lethal efficiency and overwhelming power against these formidable, but ultimately lesser foes. He cleared the field quickly and brutally.
Leaving the path open for the main event.
Exactly. The stage was now cleared for the ultimate titanic battle against Geryon himself.
The 3-bodied giant.
The commotion from the Guardian battles instantly alerted Geryon. He emerged from his lair like a living, breathing war machine.
How is he described coming out?
Our sources paint this vivid picture. wielding 3 shields and 3 spears simultaneously. Imagine the sheer defensive and offensive capabilities.
3 shields, 3 spears, attacking from multiple angles at once.
This was a foe unlike any other Hercules had faced, a true test of his legendary might. The ensuing battle was truly titanic.
A clash of titans.
Hercules facing an opponent whose multiple bodies allowed for relentless attacks from different angles. Geryon's spears rained down upon him from multiple directions, and his shields protected him from Hercules' powerful blows.
So it wasn't easy.
Not at all. This was a test not just of strength, but of endurance against a truly overwhelming, multifaceted opponent. Pushing Hercules to his absolute limits, it required more than just brute force.
Demanded strategy, cunning, and unbreakable will.
Precisely.
So how do you defeat a 3-bodied, 6-armed, shield-wielding war machine? Did he just overpower him eventually?
He didn't rely on just raw power in this final moment.
Yeah.
Our sources highlight Hercules' strategic choice of weapon.
Which was?
His infamous Hydra-poisoned arrow is a weapon of ultimate lethality.
The poison arrows from the second labor.
Exactly. Created from the venom of the Lernaean Hydra he defeated earlier, this wasn't just brute force, it was resourcefulness and preparation paying off. A grim reminder of a past triumph now turned into a decisive advantage.
So he used poison against this monstrosity.
The effectiveness was undeniable. With a precise shot, or multiple shots, he pierced Geryon's bodies. The venom, now flowing through the giant's monstrous form, proved fatal.
Wow, so the poison did the trick.
Our sources describe Geryon's dramatic collapse, a colossal fall, as he was slain by the hero's toxic weaponry. It was a truly epic, decisive blow against a seemingly unconquerable foe, a victory forged from both strength and cunning.
Okay, Geryon is down, labor complete.
Not quite. The ordeal wasn't over after the giant fell. After gathering the vast herd of red cattle, our sources emphasized that the journey back was just as arduous.
Oh, right, he still had to get the cows home.
A perilous return trip across vast lands and seas. This wasn't a triumphant stroll. New challenges emerged, including opportunistic thieves who tried to steal the precious herd along the long route back to Greece.
So more fighting even on the way back.
It truly demonstrates the full scope of the labor, not just the slaying, but the enduring struggle of the return.
And here, again, we see Hercules' legendary iron will and determination.
Absolutely. He guarded them fiercely, enduring further trials and tribulations to ensure the completion of this monumental labor. It speaks volumes about his unwavering resolve to fulfill his penance, no matter the obstacles.
Proving his heroism wasn't just about explosive strength, but about unshakable commitment.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean in the grand scheme of Hercules' legacy? The labor of Geryon had a profound impact, didn't it?
Absolutely. Hercules successfully returned to King Eurystheus with the Cattle of Geryon.
And how did Eurystheus react this time?
As expected, the cowardly king was terrified by the sight of the strange red cattle and the proof of Hercules' incredible feat. The cattle were accepted, perhaps even sacrificed to Hera or Artemis, marking the monumental completion of one of his most challenging penances.
Another labor down, terrifying the king in the process.
Pretty much his MO. But this labor truly stands as a profound testament to Hercules' endurance, resourcefulness, and audacious courage.
It showcased not just his legendary brawn, but also his strategic thinking, like using the poisoned arrows, and his unwavering resolve.
It wasn't just about smashing, it was about outsmarting and outlasting. It reveals a more nuanced heroism.
And it was far more than just a fight. It was a grand odyssey, a true mythological epic.
Our sources call it a grand odyssey to the very edge of the known world, a journey into the mystical, uncharted territories where primeval monsters still roamed.
This solidified Hercules' reputation as a hero capable of transcending not just physical, but also geographical and mythical boundaries.
Pushing the limits of what was thought possible for even a demigod, he literally ventured where no mortal should, and returned.
What about Geryon himself? Does he represent something more?
He carries significant symbolic weight. He serves as a powerful symbol of the unfamiliar and the overwhelming, a composite monster that defies easy classification.
And his 3 bodies.
His multi-bodied form can be interpreted as representing the many facets of a seemingly unconquerable problem, a challenge that attacks from all directions with multiple layers of defense.
That makes his defeat incredibly relatable, doesn't it? Like facing complex, overwhelming challenges in life that seem to come from every direction.
Exactly. It's not just a monster, but a metaphor for life's toughest battles.
And Hercules' victory, particularly his strategic use of the Hydra-poisoned arrows, What's the symbolism there?
It emphasizes his readiness to use any means necessary to overcome pure, monstrous evil, no matter how extraordinary the foe.
So a kind of pragmatism.
Yeah, it suggests a pragmatic, results-oriented approach to heroism. Sometimes it's not about fighting fair or relying solely on brute strength, but about strategically deploying every tool and past experience to win against truly overwhelming, almost existential odds.
It's a powerful lesson in decisive action, maybe even ruthless action when needed.
Perhaps. It raises interesting questions about the nature of heroism itself.
This also touches on Hercules as a boundary breaker, right? Both literally and figuratively.
Definitely. His journey to Erytheia involves passing the Pillars of Hercules,
The Strait of Gibraltar.
which marked the very edge of the ancient Greek world, a clear symbolic boundary between the known, civilized world and the vast, unknown, untamed ocean.
And Hercules' journey beyond them,
Yeah.
combined with his audacious interaction with Helios for passage.
Truly underscore his status as a boundary breaker. He was a hero who pushed the limits of human and divine exploration, venturing into realms typically reserved for gods or the dead.
He wasn't afraid to challenge the very limits of existence and venture into the cosmic unknown.
Not at all. Ultimately, the quest for Geryon's cattle and his triumph in this epic voyage redefined the limits of human achievement. It set a new standard for heroic endeavor.
It's a narrative that encourages us to consider what lies beyond our own perceived boundaries.
And how far we're willing to go to achieve the impossible. It's a story about transcending limitations, both external and internal.
A truly powerful message from an ancient myth. Okay, so with this profound understanding of Hercules' origins, his incredible labors, and his symbolic weight, let's explore how this ancient hero continues to permeate our modern world.
He really does pop up everywhere.
From high art to military operations, demonstrating his truly timeless appeal. In visual art, he possesses a remarkably iconic visual language, doesn't he?
Oh, instantly recognizable. He is traditionally identified in Roman works of art, as well as in Renaissance and post-Renaissance art, by his characteristic attributes. The lion's skin,
Often draped over his shoulders.
and the gnarled club, his preferred and most famous weapon. He's also commonly depicted in mosaics and sculptures as tan bronze, a virile aspect.
Reflecting ancient aesthetic norms for ideal male heroes. Strong, sun-kissed, powerful.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how these classical ideals continue to inspire and are then critiqued in contemporary art.
How so?
Famous classical statues like the colossal Farnese Hercules have directly inspired 20th century artists such as Jeff Koons, Matthew Derbyshire, and Robert Mapplethorpe to reinterpret Hercules for new audiences.
So they're not just copying.
No, these are active conversations with the past, pushing the boundaries of what Hercules represents today.
And it gets really interesting when you look at how these modern reinterpretations are critically examined, revealing layers of contemporary social commentary.
Right. For instance, some art critics highlight the critique of Koons and Derbyshire's choice of deliberately white materials in their Hercules-inspired works.
Why is that criticized?
This choice is seen by some as a perpetuation of colorism in how the classical world is viewed, an assumption that classical figures were exclusively white, despite historical evidence suggesting a more diverse Mediterranean world.
Ah, okay. So it's about historical representation carrying modern biases.
And how artists grapple with those legacies. Which then brings us to a compelling example of active resistance in art.
Mapplethorpe.
Robert Mapplethorpe's powerful work featuring the black model Derek Cross as Hercules is presented as a direct reaction to neoclassical colorism. Mapplethorpe was actively resisting the portrayal of Hercules as white.
Offering an alternative, more inclusive representation.
Exactly. It demonstrates how art can challenge prevailing narratives, pushing for a more diverse interpretation of classical figures, making them relevant to a broader contemporary audience.
And it's worth noting, as our sources do, that Hercules' presence in visual art is truly extensive.
Oh, massive.
Spanning Roman-era frescoes, statuettes, mosaics, to modern paintings, busts, sculptures,
Yeah.
reinforcing his continuous evolution in the visual arts.
He's never really gone out of style.
Apparently not. Beyond art, Hercules has been a potent symbol in numismatics, the study of coins reflecting value and power.
Yeah, money and power often go together.
He was among the earliest figures on ancient Roman coinage. That indicates his fundamental importance as a symbol of the Roman state's strength, virtue, values right from the beginning.
Imagine a new empire needing to project power. What better symbol than Hercules?
Exactly. And his image remains an enduring motif of many collector coins and metals since, transcending empires and eras.
Still showing up on money today.
Well, collector coins. Consider the Austrian 20 € Baroque silver coin, issued in 2002. On this coin, Hercules prominently stands at the turn of a grand staircase in a Viennese palace.
A symbol of strength, grandeur, the legacy of the Baroque era itself.
Showing how an ancient hero can signify contemporary cultural pride. And beyond that, we see him on Roman coins, fighting centaurs, carrying his club, right up to emperors like Maximinus II and Caracalla using his image.
In even modern commemorative pieces, his presence on currency consistently symbolizes stability, might, and timeless value.
It's quite a legacy. His influence extends far beyond coins and art, too, permeating military strategy, geography, popular culture.
Military strategy, like naming things after him.
Extensively, especially in naval history. 6 successive ships of the British Royal Navy bore the name HMS Hercules.
6? Wow.
And no less than 19 ships in the French Navy were called Hercules, plus 3 more named Alcide.
19. That's dedication.
And it doesn't stop there. 4 ships of the U.S. Navy, 4 Spanish, 4 Argentine, 2 Swedish, plus countless civilian vessels. It's an almost universal naval tribute to strength.
Makes sense for a warship.
It also touches on air power and strategic operations. The Lockheed C-130 Hercules military transport aircraft.
Oh yeah, the Herc. Everyone knows that plane.
A very modern example of his name, symbolizing robust power, reliability, enduring capability, known globally.
Definitely lives up to the name.
And even in the annals of historical military strategy, Operation Hercules was the German code name for an abortive plan for the invasion of Malta during the Second World War.
So even the Germans used his name for a major operation.
While the operation itself failed, the choice of name for such a daring large-scale invasion plan shows his name's continued application as a symbol of overwhelming force and ambitious, perhaps even impossible, goals.
A name that carries weight.
Beyond military applications, his name is literally etched into our geography. We have the famous Pillars of Hercules.
The Strait of Gibraltar.
A literal geographical landmark with profound ancient mythological significance, marking the boundary of the ancient world. And even in Poland, there's the Cudgel of Hercules, a tall limestone rock formation near Krakow.
So he's carved into the landscape, literally and figuratively. And if we connect this to broader cultural references, he also appears as heraldic supporters in the royal arms of Greece from 1863 to 1973.
Supporting the crown.
A visual declaration of national strength. What's fascinating here is how the accompanying Greek phrase krakles to stamatos, meaning defenders of the crown, has evolved in modern Greek to acquire pejorative connotations, now often meaning chief henchmen or thugs.
Really? It turned negative?
Yeah, it demonstrates how, even in modern times, his symbolism can be reinterpreted or even satirized to reflect different societal views or political sentiments. Symbols aren't static.
That's a great point. Finally, his presence in popular culture is undeniable and pervasive.
Oh yeah, huge.
We can't forget the series of 19 Italian Hercules movies from the late 1950s and early 1960s.
The Peplum films.
Steve Reeves.
Exactly. A significant cinematic phenomenon that captured the imagination of global audiences with their blend of muscle, myth, and adventure.
Defined a whole genre, really.
And of course, his continued presence in comic books, Marvel, DC Comics.
Both have their own Hercules.
Iconic television series like Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Young Hercules.
Absorbo.
And countless video games. It ensures that new generations continue to encounter and redefine this enduring hero.
Proving his timeless appeal is still going strong. He just keeps getting reinvented.
#tagged outro. So yeah, we've kind of come full circle in this deep dive, haven't we? Hercules, the Roman adaptation of Greek legend, truly transcended his origins to become this universal symbol.
He really did.
We've seen how he was reinterpreted from a moral allegory in the medieval period where his monsters became spiritual vices, to a powerful political tool during the Renaissance, used to legitimize kings.
Yeah, the Gallic Hercules.
We delved into his epic 10th labor, that journey to the very edge of the known world, which symbolized not just courage against the unknown, but an unbreakable resolve.
And we've explored how his name and image continue to permeate our modern world, art, finance, military strategy, pop culture.
He's just everywhere.
What's truly incredible, I think, is that his story isn't just about super strength or brute force.
No, there's much more to it.
It's about pushing limits, facing overwhelming odds, adapting to impossible situations, and finding the courage to venture beyond the known. These are qualities that resonate deeply across all eras and cultures.
He's not just a hero of muscle, but of an indomitable spirit, an unwavering will to overcome. His strength ultimately lies in his timeless relevance.
Absolutely.
So, considering Hercules' audacious journey to the edge of the world, his willingness to challenge even the sun god, and his remarkable transformation through centuries of reinterpretation, what aspect of his enduring appeal do you think is most vital for our world today?
That's a great question for our listeners. And perhaps even more importantly, what might revisiting these ancient tales, particularly the ones that push the boundaries of what is known, what might they offer us in terms of new insights into our own contemporary challenges? Confronting the unfamiliar, the overwhelming. Plenty to think about there.
We certainly hope this deep dive has given you plenty to